Christine is a person who goes into the world with such an openness towards people, towards ideas, towards things. She waits till something happens and things talk to her, and then she starts creating it.
She's bringing together materials and shapes and ideas and then composing a piece of jewellery. It flows. It was obvious that she was doing very different things with metal to what anyone else could do.
Making jewellery is for me a mood thing. Sometimes you see colours and sometimes you don't, and therefore you choose different things.
She always manages to create something that has just that interesting tension inside of it.
Stones have to tell me something, and if there is a kind of life there and I somehow can see something in them.
She keeps on being enthused by shapes and forms and stones and ideas.
You have to know the stones, you have to know the gold, you have to know yourself. There's so many parts which really come together.
She doesn't make jewellery with her head. She makes jewellery with her whole being.
Christine seems to be looking for a new idea, a search for something about herself and her environment, that both her personal environment, the wider environment she lives in, and I think the sort of the world environment, because she is a politically conscious sort of person as well as very socially conscious, and a woman who has got a strong emotional core to herself, and that's all reflected in the jewellery, I believe.
The timeless nature of Christine's designs is a huge point of difference in her work, and she has this ability to achieve the, I suppose it's a truth, perhaps, in her design, which then produces these designs that you can't date. You can't say that's 70s, that's 90s, that's 2010.
The work often has a very modern aspect to it, but it also harkens back to certainly the jewellery of the last 300–400 years. But there are also elements of quite classical jewellery, the Greek and Roman and those earlier civilizations, so that elements of that jewellery as well as medieval and the jewellery of all other sorts of civilizations. And being able to have those various levels of historical and cultural aspects of jewellery is quite innovative.
We are here on top of a hill. The place is called Landgutburg. It's very close to Stuttgart, surrounded by vineyards. And there are 2 pavilions which we occupy now for more than 20 years. Coming here, having exhibitions. And it's always lovely and it's peaceful and you can rest, you can have time.
I've come from Australia, which is quite a long way to come for an exhibition, but when I heard that Mum was going to have this exhibition where everyone's coming from all different times in her life and all of my family as well, I thought that I had to just make it happen.
And being now self-employed for 40 years, 20 years in Europe and 20 years in New Zealand, so it's half and half. That's, for me, quite an achievement. My dad just had a little speech for me outside. He said, "Christina, I'm really proud about you," and his tears came down and gave me a big hug, and it really made it real in a way. I'm born in Erfurt and I'm very proud to come from such a traditional place, from tradespeople. I grew up in a family where you used always your hands, your head. Being here in Erfurt, I can feel from each building something from the history is coming out. In 1853, 100 years later, I came along. And the precision of these wheels was really very, very good. Tuck, tuck. Most of the houses are from around 1200. And I always thought history is a burden on my shoulders. When it comes to wars, there is a burden. But when I see this, what people achieve to do and to make, it becomes joy, which is lovely. Erfurt is in the middle of Germany. It's called the green heart of Germany, and I never understood it as a child. But it's really in the middle of Germany. And every pathway, like the Silk Road, had to go through Erfurt. So somehow in the city I get this feeling back for making something with your hand and thinking with your head. It's not just buying and selling, you really make it. Martin Luther was a big reformator. It was around 1500 to 1530. He worked in this area, and his biggest wish was really to reform the churches. He translated the Bible because he was hoping if the common people can read the word of God, then there is a big plus. They understand what the church really means. Otherwise they only have the spoken word but not the written word. This church here is called the Kaufmannskirche, and this became the family church. So my dad got christened in here, he got confirmed in here, and later he got married in here. And this was in '46 at Christmas Day. They had a coach, a white one with 2 white horses. Many people know Johann Sebastian Bach as a composer, and I didn't know his parents got married in here as well, but from the family tree they had 73 christenings, 19 weddings and 60 burials from the Bach family. I find this incredible. When you watch your parents what they do, somehow you try to imitate them and you would like to become what your dad is. And becoming a goldsmith, I wasn't confronted with goldsmithery. It was just the forging and things what Papi did as a plumber. But I'm sure that the vision of making something was very important to me. I wasn't born for being in an office from mornings to evenings, not knowing what I achieved, or to see in the evening what you did. It's really a nice feeling, uplifting. And then people are happy to really say, I'm so pleased what I see, and I pay you, I give you some money for it. It's the biggest compliment in the end. And it's beautiful. I was born in the former East Germany in 1953. I was the second daughter of Hans and Helga Hafermalz. In 1920, they bought this house with gold marks, was the currency in this time. And he was the last one of 7 kids. He was the youngest. Auch schon alles abgerissen.
Ja.
Das ist noch das Backhaus da.
Ist der Kamin noch da?
Der Kamin steht gerade noch, aber in der Mitte fehlt hier was.
Das haben sie abgerissen. Und ganz hinten steht da noch ein Haus. So.
Da steht noch ein Haus, ja. And in '94, the house came back to the family. And then we asked somebody what we have to put into this house to make it really viable. And he said a good $1 million with all the new vanities and whatever. And Papi was already blind, and he said, I can't look after the place, we sell this. And the money came to me, and this was a start for a batch in Piha. And then we sold Piha, and this was the ground on Waiheke. So this was Erfurt. Erfurt was really the foundation for our future life. So up here, in this room, I was born. And in this time, most people or most women had their kids at home, not in hospitals. There were 2 shops. There was a greengrocer. And when I was 3, he said, I can buy some mustard and they sold mustard in a beer mug. And so I went up there and bought my mustard. There was a big problem with food. Being Russia, or the Russians occupied East Germany, it was hard to be yourself. Papi bought really expensive books and came home and he couldn't find his books, and he said, "Where are my books?" Mommy said, "I sold them on the black market." And he said, "You can't do this." He said, "Yes, your family is hungry. You need something to eat." And he thought, this is really a strange place now to be, and this is when they finally decided really to escape. It's like a spy movie. Papi tried to escape with the whole of the family, so his wife and 2 kids. And they got him out of a train because somebody said something. And he was imprisoned here. And his cell was in this building, and he was on his own in his cell, so nobody else was there. Mummy lived not too far away, where I was born in the Moritzgasse. And she was not allowed to really work. She found some work in a washing place, so cleaning sheets and ironing things, because after he was imprisoned, she was kicked out from her job. So she really had to find things. And she has written him letters, but the letters my dad never received them. Hearing nothing for 1 year from each other, it's a long, long time. And she had 2 kids and she had to cope with them. Wasn't easy, gell? Mami und ihre 2 Kinder. Mhm. Und du warst hier und sie war
um die Ecke rum.
Um die Ecke rum, ja. Just around the corner. When he came out of prison, his lawyer said to him, "Do the same thing again, go." He turned on his heels and he walked to the Russian zone and finally ended up in Frankfurt. Sent my mom a telegram from Frankfurt, "I'm right, I'm in Frankfurt." And she was totally amazed. And then she got watched, like saw the life of others, what she was doing. And Mummy sold her household, put all her money into a belt, took me to an auntie, and my sister and my mum went up to Berlin. She finally came to the West, how I still don't know exactly, but she got her money out of her belt and this was just enough for an air ticket to go to Frankfurt. And she arrived there with my sister, Charlotte. And my dad said, "Where is Christine?" And Mummy said, "I couldn't take her, it was much too dangerous. A girl in this age, when you ask her, where are you going? Oh, I go in the West." That's not quite right. And it was much too dangerous. And he was disappointed I wasn't there. But my auntie, she had a farm, and I still believe she gave somebody a pig or something to eat, and he put a stamp on a piece of paper, and I was allowed to join the family, and I was able to take my pillow, and my auntie brought me over. And this was in '57. I was finally allowed to cross the border. There were a lot of refugees coming from the east. You were certainly totally different because you spoke differently. You didn't speak the local language, the dialects. And Mummy felt so unhappy. She always said she would like to go back where she came from, even this is East Germany. She couldn't bear, she couldn't adjust. My sister was the same.
Christine was a very social child, and she had good friends in the class, and was also a pupil who helped others in the class. I know she was very intelligent and she had artist talents. Wir sagen, sie hatte eine künstlerische Begabung und handwerkliche Begabung und aber auch den Willen, das umzusetzen und zu zeigen, ja, dass sie das, was sie begonnen hat, auch zu Ende führen kann. Ja?
So I didn't leave it just lying there. I really had the ambition to follow the thread to finish it. He was very, very young, very ambitious, and we were very naughty.
It was 1964.
The Raumkapsel.
Yes.
There was the time when we were behind the houses and looking for the space things going round. These two are mine. Dieter was such a good teacher, and somehow, I'm sure, bit by bit, everybody influenced me on my way. And he was a big part of it. No, it's great. The memories of you are amazing. And my father got a job as a plumber again. For me as a child, I always was with Papi. I went into his workshop, and sometimes he really couldn't look after me, but he put me on a chair, and in the vise he put a big pipe, gave me the biggest file, and I was filing away, and I was really happy, and I was busy, and I had something to do. And especially when it was cold outside, it was nice and warm in his environment. And so I really grew up with Papi's tools, with his smells in his workshop, and it was always heimelig. It was nice to be there. And at one point, one of his friends there said, "Christine, what do you like to be later on?" I said, "Oh, a plumber." And Papi heard this and he said, "No way." And so I thought becoming a goldsmith would be quite something, but how to start to find a workshop or an apprenticeship. In our village, there is a man, he's a sculptor, but he teaches in the school for goldsmiths. Papi took my hand, we walked across and knocked on his door, and he opened, and he said, "Who are you?" "I'm Christine. I would like to become a goldsmith." And he took my hand, went to a garage, opened the garage, and there was a complete workshop. And he showed me all the tools. I thought, the smells are right. Yes, that's good. And I started then 2 days before the Russians marched into Czechoslovakia. This was the start of my apprenticeship. And I catch the train 5:30 in the morning, and this was still steam train, 1.5 hours one way and 1.5 hours back in the evening, but 3.5 years apprenticeship. So this was my walk from the train station. This is where I finished my apprenticeship. So I was good 2 years in here. Das war always like so middle-age feeling again, being in here. Die alten Benches, die sind schön. Die neuen mit den Boards, die sie da haben, das ist nicht schön.
Finde ich auch nicht schön. Die mit den alten Fällen, die sind.
The apprenticeship took 3.5 years. 1.5 I did with Herbert Fischer, and then I came here for the 2 years. And I loved the environment of Schwäbisch Gmünd again. And we moved around in my childhood so often, so I was quite happy to be stable here and make a few friends. And this was important to me.
I have only good remember at Christine.
And in 3.5 years to have 2 tutors who really form you in different ways was very good. When you have one for 3, 4, 5 years, you are so in a channel and it's not easy to break out. But with the 2 of them, the first one was really so the artist. He gave me the time. We were able to think about images, what we had in mind. We were cutting out things and playing around with stones. And the second one was a gemologist, and he gave me the edge when it comes to stones. And I was so lucky to really was able to do what I liked. That's great. When I finished my apprenticeship and I did my exam, this was my first job. I started my business in '72 when we just started with the oil crisis, and we were in a recession as well in Germany, and people said, "Why on earth do you start now?" I said, "If I can handle this, I can handle all the crises." I was 18, very young, green behind my ears, and sometimes quite good not knowing everything, what's in your way. Because if you calculate everything, it's something else happens and whatever. But I put a lot of my life and my energy into it to make this work. I used part of it as a gallery for the people who just finished their art school. And I thought, I'm young, they need help, I need help. And really people came from all the corners and looked. And these 3 rooms was also gallery. We had lovely exhibitions here. I had a parrot at the time that was sitting in here, so people stopped, looked at the parrot, and I put the parrot through the books, and the accountant said, how could you? I said, it's the best advertising. People see, they stop and they see what I'm doing. And in '77, I moved into the middle of Stuttgart, and it's a lovely pedestrian area, very so grand. And I had 7 employees at the time, and the overheads were enormous. But I jumped the hurdle, and I think I made my name in this time in Stuttgart. But here, this was 5 hard years. It was very, very good. As I said, for promotion, for everything, it was really a good time to be here. And when we opened, we invited the mayor, and we dressed like in the... So 100 years ago, we went to a theater company to get the right with hats and shoes and everything. We had pan flute music, and it was amazing. We had, our muscles were hurting from opening champagne bottles to pour out the champagne. The people were queuing up here to come in there. That's unbelievable.
My husband and I were walking through the road, and my husband told me, oh, look, there is a nice new shop with jewelry. And we were fascinated.
When we met, she had already been working for 10 years, and she'd had a couple of smaller shops and then moved into this bigger one, which was where I joined her.
And so David joined my business, and in '81 we got married. In '82 we got our son.
We got on very well together, and we very soon defined our roles, so rather automatically that my job was to give her time to sit at her workbench and to make jewellery. So anything that I could do that would allow her to sit there and be creative was very valuable.
My partner, husband, soulmate, you name it, he's there. He's always there, mostly in the background, but he's there. From here we moved to the outskirts again, we had time again for people, and we breathed again.
When we left the Kalverstrasse, we found this place because it was near our home, and the building was very old and was run down. We renovated the whole house, so it looked really smart when we moved in. This is where both our children grew up, crawling around on the floor here.
Jeder durfte nach seinen eigenen Ideen arbeiten und auch seine eigenen Kunden so ein Stück weit betreuen und hat quasi alles gemacht von Anfang bis zum Schluss an diesem Stück, und es war ein künstlerisches Arbeiten. Also kein eingezwängtes in ein System oder so, sondern jeder konnte sich so frei entfalten.
If you get very intensely involved in doing something, often we do that and we kind of ignore ourselves in the process, so intent on doing what we're doing, that then we kind of seize up another part of us, and I think that must have contributed to the trouble in her bag.
There are some aspects of Christine's work which require considerable physical effort, drawing wire through a drawing plate being the major one. And this, early on in her career, caused a strain on her back, which then she didn't address for a long time. The stresses of having a shop in a high street and the commitment to employees meant she ignored that and just put it into the background. But after 15 years, that came to a head.
Somebody said, you have to go to the doctor, x-rays and blah, blah, blah. I said, I can't go to the doctor, I have to work. So I pushed this aside, but somehow it became more and more of a pain. And over years, I was in a kind of spiral. And in West Germany, they said I had spondylitis, where your back goes bent. And I should think about myself, and I can get blind and blah, 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 and I had various tests and said we really have to do something. And we thought for David being a teacher, it would be easier to get a job in England than in Germany.
Whilst we were confronting Christine's back problems in Stuttgart, the Chernobyl accident also occurred, and the fallout came over Stuttgart city, and our life was very much compromised with that.
We were not able to harvest anything in the garden, and 4 weeks before our daughter was born, I thought, having a baby and you can't give her milk or anything, everything I eat, she's getting. And I said to David, I would love to leave Germany behind me. This is now the end for me. I would love to go. And he said, where do you like to go? And I said, New Zealand. He said, this is too far away. And gave me the map, and we looked around and ended up in England. So we moved there in '87 and had a part of a big, big house called Tillington Hill House.
We made that shift, and the first thing that I arranged when Christine arrived was for her to go to Bath to see a specialist in the hospital there.
And after a week he said to me, you don't have this kind of disease in a way, you are fine. With your help we can get you right again. It takes time, but we get you. I thought, wow.
The road to recovery then took 6-9 months, I think it was, to effect, and she was back on the road and making jewellery again.
And from there, all of a sudden, I didn't have a shop anymore.
We realised that we were very much within our boundaries, within the 4 walls of a shop. And that felt to be slightly constricting. You thought within your walls, you reacted to people who came through your door. When we moved to England, we then worked from home and took the sales process out of the studio. So that then took on a very different aspect. This was going out to meet people.
So we went to country fairs, to Wales, to Scotland, really everywhere in the country, and met farmers.
Our mainstay in England was around the agricultural shows, the Royal Show, the South of England, the Bath and West, the Game Fair, badminton horse trials in these stately houses, and there was always a commercial area, and we were part of that.
They're spending really good money there for a new tractor, and the ladies always are a bit having spare times, and they marched through and stopped. Colour, there's something else. What are you doing? The jewellery. Oh. We lived 5 years in England. We met lovely people there. Had then also a show in the Goldsmith Hall, and then later in Mayfair in London.
When we were doing these shows in England, she was exposed to new influences, new environments, new social groups, and landscapes as well, very much, because we were in these beautiful, beautiful houses, the stately homes of England. We were in their grounds, and this was a very different environment to Stuttgart City. And I think she gained a lot of freedom in her creativity in that time.
Coming from the east, I never thought the Berlin Wall would come down. But one day the imaginable happened. The wall came down without any bloodshed. And we thought we have to be a part of it. So 6 weeks after the wall started to crumble, we went to Berlin. It was freezing cold. This was in January. And we were walking. We came to the opening from the Kliniker Bridge, where the spice got swapped in the past, and a few other openings. And I said to David, I would like to chisel the wall. And he said, why? I said, the wall all of a sudden became colorful. And especially in the West, we had all these graffiti paints. In the East, it was mostly white. So you saw the shadows when people tried to escape. So we got hammer and chisel from a friend of ours, and we started chiseling the wall. Amongst was a meeting with 2 East German soldiers, and we talked to them. And somehow he took his hat off and gave me his badge from his head. And I thought, now I need black, red and yellow to make a brooch. My heart was so pumping to see the city where I came from. And the emotions ran really wild to be part of this whole event. And all the people were in party mood. We met people, they opened their bags, they got out a bottle of schnapps and a few glasses, and we started discussing politics in the middle of nowhere with people we have never met before. So all these collection of the Berlin Wall in the end made some pieces from events from the past, the air bridge, the tunnels through Berlin, east and west, these 4 sectors. So I made 29 pieces all together with these graffiti painted wall. And the exhibition started in England and then came to Germany. And I didn't know I had so many people who came from the East, but these pieces all of a sudden brought us even closer, and they talked about their stories. So it was a very emotional thing to come into terms with the past.
It's a way of an artist incorporating their history, their personal history, in with a wider history. And I think that gives a greater density to the work. It also allows the wearer to be able to respond as people do. When they say, that's a lovely piece of jewellery, you can say, yes, and this is about the Berlin Wall or my homeland or something like that, or this friend's or this jeweller's homeland. So there is a narrative attached to it, just as in some of the other work, which is a very distinctive New Zealand quality. There's a narrative about the story of a river or the stories of the mountain. Here we have the story of the world, and that's something which very little jewellery manages to be able to capture.
It was always, I loved New Zealand, and so for me it was, I would love to see this country one day.
We came down here, had a camper van, all 4 of us, travelled both islands, and by the end of the holiday it was pretty clear that this was where we wanted to live.
But went then back to England. But half a year later, sitting in our conservatory, David said, what are you thinking? I said, New Zealand. He said, me too. Then we got our kids and said, what would you say if Mummy and Daddy would immigrate to New Zealand? Yay! And a year later we came here. It really fell into place and we never looked back. Titirangi is a very artist-minded area in Auckland, in West Auckland, and it was a lovely place to bring up some kids.
When we came to New Zealand, we were working mostly in Germany. Following that, we decided that it would be interesting to look at the American market as well. And in 2000, I did a trip once around the world and went to Los Angeles and New York and San Francisco. And for the next 10 years, we took work up to the States, showed them in galleries, met people, met journalists, had some fabulous press reports, including a full page in the Rob Report, which is one of the exclusive magazines. So that really showed our work in that environment. Everyone was very, very complimentary about Christine's efforts, and they found it extraordinary what she was doing.
Got invited to clients and showing privately and things like this.
So that was a very exciting time going through the States, and we met some very interesting, very influential people, have some excellent clients, especially in New York, which we thoroughly enjoyed. This procedure led us, having moved to New Zealand, to seeking a wonderful venue in England to which we could return and have an exhibition. And for that we hired Highclere Castle for 2 days.
People who watch television are familiar with Downton Abbey, so this castle was twice in our lives. For a couple of days, our castle, where we have shown jewellery. We were able to use the furniture, and people were sitting on the writing desk from Napoleon. And it was a lovely time to be there, and people really came from all directions to this castle.
We played Lord and Lady Downton for a short time and exhibited our jewellery, which was a splendid affair. That was very exciting. And that gave us a taste for bigger and better exhibition venue. Over the period of the millennium, Christine was offered an exhibition at the Auckland Museum for a collection of work which became titled Navigator, an essay in jewellery. She had collected some wonderful stone material over her time, from when she goes to Ida Oberstein in Germany, where we buy the stones and we see fabulous specimens laid out. Amongst them was a wonderful piece of aquamarine from our favourite stonecutter Bernd Munsteiner. And the moment he opened his case and we saw this stone, we said, oh, that's a waka, and there's a canoe. David Lewis was instrumental in the rediscovery of Polynesian navigation systems. He had lived in the islands for a long time, he was a sailor, and he had made it his work to find from these people the traces of how they used to navigate without equipment.
I said to him I would love to do an exhibition where all the pieces are related to navigational orientation systems. Coming from land, I didn't have any idea about the water. And I showed him the ingredients I had in mind, and he looked at me and thought, okay, bit of a strange task, but he told me a few stories and he helped me along.
So she then took a number of references to methods of navigation, used her stone material, and built this collection called Navigator. It hailed a new era in her creativity, where she was able to burst all the boundaries under which she'd normally been constrained.
So some arms of an octopus take you out and some arms take you in. So I made the spangle narrower and wider. I fused the layers together. I granulated it with tiny, tiny golden beads like the Etruscans. I folded it round as a bangle. It was around 50 blue tourmalines in different shapes and sizes, and lots of diamonds for the water reflection. Inlaid, and the last tourmaline wouldn't like to be set. And David said, I have to leave this room, tension are running high. And I thought, if I damage this one, I never get a color range like this. So I thought, calm down, start again, take the setting out, put the stone in, try to bevel everything over the stone, and in the end I made it.
After the Navigator exhibition had been in the Auckland Museum for 3 months, we then took it offshore. The America's Cup Jubilee Regatta in Cowes had a venue run by New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. They had the America's Cup in their tent, and we took a stand and showed it there. So in the home of sailing. That was very exciting. All the sailing world was there. So many boats, and everyone was pushing their way through, trying to be first round the island. It was mayhem. Following that, Christine took the exhibition to Erfurt.
I got invited in 2001 to show the whole exhibition here in Erfurt in the Haus Dacheröden, and I was overwhelmed after all these years to somehow complete the circle, to be here in such a historic building where Schiller, Goethe, Napoleon came, and it was really very emotional.
And so she was able to present this to her town and said, this is where I've come to, and I came from here. So that was a very satisfying moment.
When I had my 25 years anniversary, I said to David, look, when we go to Germany, we really shouldn't give just a glass of champagne or some nibbles. Could we bring them some music from New Zealand? He said, oh dear, we will see. So he went to the New Zealand House in London, and there was a culture group, dancers, and asked them if they would be prepared to come to Germany. The High Commissioner came, and we had a performance before the opening. I think this was much better than giving out some champagne. And so I gave them a piece of New Zealand. And they still talk about this whole day. And I know many backgrounds of families, and they know my background very, very well.
We went to a fair in Taiwan, and I was wearing a brooch that Christine had made as a response to the paintings of Gustav Klimt. I was telling this person at a reception about my brooch, and he said, we've got an exhibition of a Chinese painter in Beijing in 2 months' time. Would you like to make a collection of jewellery influenced by her work?
There's a painter who died in '76 in Paris. She's from Shanghai, and we try to do a retrospective from her. And I think 200 paintings they put together. And in the end, I made some pieces related to her paintings in the Capital Museum in Beijing.
It's a brand new museum, the second largest in the country. And we had 3 cabinets full of Christine's work next to this lady's paintings.
And I did lots of breastplates. She had lovely curves and back positions, colors. The main color was really red, black and white, and a few others amongst them, but this was the main thing, and it was just beautiful.
With her work, which responded to Pan Yulin, as well as the work where she responded to Klimt, both those series of works about artists, she actually responds to the emotional ideas which lie beneath the surface of those works. And that was, I think, one of the great things about the work, that it replicates the ideas and the notions behind what those artworks were about.
this is the pagoda. So this is the staircase going up. That's the pagoda, the sky. And if you think about an art piece in a way, you can still wear it, you can have your imagination whatsoever, but when you know the story, you really can see what it means.
The director of the museum saw these, and she made the comment that in China they view work, created work, in the terms of the heavenly and the earthly. And the earthly is the practical, that's what the hand has done. The heavenly is the artistic aspect that comes into this, and it's the effect that this creation has on the big picture, on the universe, on humanity. And she said, Christine has the heavenly. There is a heavenly aspect to these.
I think Christine has this amazing ability to be interested in something and pick it up and then transform it and transmute it in her work. And the New Zealand influence was very powerful when she went there.
Knowing a few people here on the island, we spent a bit of time here. We had exhibitions in the Community Arts Gallery.
Titirangi was a beautiful place, but a lot of people found it difficult to get to. And Waiheke is very much simpler. You get on a ferry.
And we thought, this could be the place to be, to get the people over here. In the end, it was quite a long process, altogether 3 years, of finding the spot, building the house, getting reorganized. And it was really nice to build a solid house, a nice house. It feels good and everything is so grounded, like I make jewelry. Somehow it's not flimsy, it has solidity, it has a good feel. You can look at it and it's somehow nice. We won House of the Year from the North region. And the Lifestyle Award of good building materials. I think the approach was very similar to my jewelry.
You look at her work, she's always picked up an idea and then she starts creating it.
This is how you start playing around, getting materials together. That's a nice shape in this. Making jewelry is for me a mood thing. Sometimes you see colors and sometimes you don't, and therefore you choose different things.
In choosing her various colours, the various jewellery colours that she wants, is like an impressionist artist in action. They dab away at their palette, choosing those random colours.
She waits till something happens and things talk to her.
This could be a possibility to put it in here or even put it in there.
So she lets herself feel the stones, touch them, talk, put them there, think, what would be nice, where do you want to go almost, you know?
So if I make a necklace or something to integrate these. But these stones have to tell me something, and I somehow can see something in them.
To the casual observer, it's quite a random act, but in fact there's something deeper going on there. A cerebral thing as well as an emotional thing, which brings all those colours together.
And if you see the colours together, this is too clear for this. You see it's too light. This is better. If I use them in the end together, I don't know, but I could, and if I take another road, it could be totally different. And that's really fun.
Then it goes into metal work, and it's always evolving. As you, the idea of organic is a very important element in the creativity, because it can develop, it can change, it can even change function through the development of the piece. So a brooch might turn into a bangle, or because that's the way the material is going, that's the way it's taking her. The final solution always rests with Christine, because it's her hands that are doing the work.
But so, we bounce things off.
Yes, but I'll annoy her until it gets to where I want it to be.
She gets inspired, then her energy starts. And then she goes, wow, you know, wow, that wow is like an expression from her. But her creativity also comes like, wow, that's something to run with, you know.
It's a sketch for me to see which angle I would like to do up. I very, very seldom put something on paper. It's more playing with stones, but these nuggets of onyx are fairly plain, so that I don't have to look for color as such, but I have to look how I put the pieces then together. So I made these settings for the onyx, and they go in here, and then they get threaded. And I would like to achieve a necklace which you can wear through the day and also at night, and you let it grow. That's the important thing. It's not just focused on this little sketch. I always give me the freedom to really break out, to see optically this is right or this is wrong, and you feel it, and that's important. Here I'm preparing to make an 18-karat gold nail. I need 750 parts in fine gold, and the 250 parts is a mixture from copper, which is in here, and silver. And this is fine silver, and this gives, in the end, 18 karat. No, this is really, it's alchemy, and it's really very precise, like a chemist has to get the medicines right, but it's a very, very precise thing. And I always, in my 40 years, I made 18 karat, never 14, never 8, and then the client really gets something for their money. And the time when you really prepare the melting and the thinking, you already get so involved in the whole process of making the next piece and the next steps. And it's a nice, peaceful time because you can't run away, and it really keeps you on your toes. You think about the gold. When this little beauty here comes out, I go to my rolling mill to make it thinner, and it depends if I make a shank, a bangle, something for the neck. It depends what I like to do. Very often I get old jewelry from people in different grades, which I then can convert into 18 karat. Then I can melt it down in here, pour a new gold nail, and start from the beginning and breathe new life into old jewelry.
A number of the works which are landscape based, there is the geological element, but there's also a sense of the discovery of the land. And a lot of that jewellery encapsulates those ideas about us living with nature and nature evolving.
One of the most recent additions to Christine's palette is the Jewellery technique. This is a method of folding metal that's been derived from Japanese textile concepts.
You need a wooden core, and it's a hardwood. And you got a piece of metal, like a sheet. It's very thin when you get it through the rolling mill, and you wind this around the hard core of wood. When this is wound round, you put it in the vise, like this, with the metal, and then you hammer it over.
And so that shibori has lent itself to the intersection necklace, where two pieces of this metal fold over and there's a pearl in the middle holding them together. I'll go and collect people from the ferry, and then when we get to the studio, then it moves into Christine's space, and she's then responsible for the creativity.
I'm from Aberdeen in Scotland, and just loved the pieces, so I kept coming back. I'm going to have a ring and a bracelet today, or my necklace. I've got a few things that I like, so.
This piece I had finished, and Izzy came along and she saw this, and she loves the idea of the tiki. And this is an old tiki, around 100 years old. I thought, this poor tiki went around now for 100 years not knowing what to do. I make a maze, And because Izzy's life is sometimes like a maze too, so she could relate to it. Well,
yeah, that's
lovely.
Really nice. Well, I'm pleased with that now. The chain's lovely.
Good.
I've never seen double rings before until I came here, but then I've become to love them, as you know.
The double ring derived from an encounter in Stuttgart when she still had the shop, and a client asked her to create a big ring for her. Now, if you put a large stone on a band and put it on your finger, it spends most of its time on the hand side, not on the back of your hand. And so Christine devised this system of keeping large stone material on the upper side of the hand.
This shank is shaped to my fingers. This top now has to be soldered onto the ring shank. And I put it on my hand again. Then I have to find the right position on the right hand side for the ruby and see how it really comes together.
Yes, and I've travelled, as you know, extensively. I've never seen anything like this. But you know, your jewellery is it's also art. You know, every piece that you make, you just look at it as if it's not just jewellery, it's the technique and it's interesting to look at like a picture. And it's such a world of difference to see things like that.
Of being able to do what painters normally do on canvas. And there are not many people around who really can express their feelings and really put their thoughts into stones.
Yes, I miss Izzy.
And I'll miss you. Oh, we see each other again.
Yes.
Either in Germany or back here.
Back here. Yes.
Thank you for coming. Hello.
Hallo.
Heute hergereiste hier. Ganz toll.
Ja.
From Holland. Yes. Old friends.
Yeah.
Welcome. Really nice. So I would like to invite you to come inside.
We try to create an ambience, just a nice place to come and spend a happy afternoon. That's exactly what we've tried to do over all the years.
And this is the nice thing with all the people who have met me or I met them, was always through my pieces, and they're always happy to come again to see what's new.
And you send out the invitations, you never know who reads them. There was a couple I haven't seen for 15 years. They live in North Germany. They left home at 4 o'clock this morning to get here. Came down, spent the day, bought 3 pieces, and went home very happy.
I don't want to buy from other designers, always Christine.
That is absolutely wonderful.
And when I see a piece of jewellery, I know by how it's done, the arrangement of the stones or the golds, and you know exactly from the first look that's Christine's.
The lovely thing is that every piece is individual, so each piece waits for a person.
Every piece is unique, you know.
This here used to be a cuffling of her dad. The stone is Ponamu from New Zealand, but bringing the two things together and the cuffling is in there, I thought, I risk it. And she likes it. It's nice.
I went to New York with my mother, and there I met Christine. And we saw a ring with a special stone, those rings for 2 fingers. So my mother bought me this ring for my 50th birthday in New York.
When my mum escaped from East Germany, she took my sister and I wasn't allowed to go. The gentleman next to my dad is Jochen Kramer, and his mum and dad were able to take me over to West Germany in '57. And after 54 years, we saw us for the first time again. It was very strange, it was very nice, but it's a funny feeling. And now he is here to see my dad. It's my extended family, and this is lovely. Great. Have another glass of wine. Thank you, Angela. Thank you.
It's just a big family. It's an occasion not to be missed.
And with really moving away, I thought the distance, people will we fell apart or we get apart, but somehow we even grew more together, closer, and it's just overwhelming. I'm really so happy, and it's a nice thing. Really, distance doesn't mean anything. If you know somebody and you feel for somebody, you make it possible.
It's wonderful to see how so many years she keeps on being enthused by shapes and forms and stones and ideas and always something new and creative. I mean, I admire her tremendously.
And I've recognised in her work that it is such a unique and rare skill and talent to have these days. And some of it is, I believe, raw talent and that real sensibility that she has for people and stones. She's very intuitive, but I also think a lot of it's just hard work.
It's really, we spent time with Christina and David seeing the jewellery, and it's great.
I don't know how wide a lens he's got.
No, I got a pretty wide lens here.
No?
So everyone, let's have a little cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers!
Cheers! Cheers!